I've got some good news and some bad news.
So what's the bad news?
Well, the bad news is something I've coveted for a long time. The RedSeven Amp Central loadbox has been discontinued.
Then what's the good news?
But the good news is there's now the Amp Central EVO, the new and improved version of the Amp Central with some amazing new features, and I've got it right here. Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed Lonely Rocker. Thank you so much for joining me today. So yes, today I have the RedSeven Amp Central EVO. Now, no one ever said that the pursuit of tone was cheap and easy. And I know in this digital renaissance that we're in, well, at the click of a button, you can have something that sounds like a guitar tone. But those of you that know, and the pursuit of getting that tone, well, that's all part of the fun. And if you like your real amps, but live in an apartment or in a house, as I do here, cranking up that amp, unfortunately, sometimes is just not practical. But with things like a load box, we can take full advantage of all the juicy tone that we can get out of real tube amp, and we can work at comfortable volumes. We can work at headphones. And the Amp Central EVO is one of the best ones on the market. I unfortunately never got to try the original one, but I'm really happy to have the new one here. So why don't we start off by getting a little sample and hear what this sounds like connected to my Angle Powerball 2. All right, I think that sounded really good. Now, I have to say, when I decided to use the Angle Powerball 2, I was planning to rip it up. I was going to use my Schecter C1 SLS Elite, fresh after a nice setup, nice drop C tuning. Well, those of you who follow the trials and tribulations of that guitar, well, all I can say is it's not currently here right now. More about that in another video. But I think that was a great track to sort of demonstrate a range of different tones, from cleans to more sort of classic rock, like good crunch sound. And the process of recording those tones was kind of the way I typically work, using the load box. The amp is connected to the load box, and then the load box goes line out into my interface. I use my FM9, which I sometimes use to host my CAB IRs, or sometimes I use none at all, and I use the CAB IR loader in my DAW for the most flexibility. And the load box itself is extremely critical because load boxes do sound different. I have a bunch here, and we'll dive into that as well in another video, but I'm really pleased of how good this sounds. Good articulation, a good translation of that amplifier gives me a lot to work with when I get into a mixed situation. But there are a lot more features on the EVO if you're using this in a live situation, or you just like having DSP processing and things like that. So why don't we look at some of the added benefits of the Amp Central EVO. If you've never used the load box, it replaces the speaker cabinet, keeping your amp safe by providing the load it needs to function properly, and by delivering the sound from the amp through a line level connection, allowing you to record a cranked amp at manageable volumes or on headphones. So not being able to have a tube amp while living in an apartment is a weak argument, just saying. The Amp Central EVO builds on the original design and adds some new features and improvements, making this an even more versatile device. The main load box functionality already sounded amazing and was carried forward to the new device. The stereo IR loader now supports 500 millisecond 48 kHz 24-bit mono IRs, and you can load and blend two at the same time. And it comes loaded with 16 of RedSeven's high-quality IRs. You can also load your own. You can store 16 presets where you can customize the blend of your IRs, add power amp simulations with 8 different options, and access MIDI settings and the built-in noise gate. And this can all be controlled by the Void X controller app, available as a mobile or desktop application. Looking around back, you have a lot of connectivity, including a stereo effects loop. The main outputs send the process signal out, and the line out sends out a dry signal from your amp. This is how I tracked the guitars in the previous example. Let's hear the crunch tone isolated. Your amp connects to the from amp out, and the 2 speaker connects back to your speaker cabinet, so you can use the built-in attenuator that will step you down by half. And this high-quality load box is proudly made in Italy. So another way to use the Amp Central EVO is by taking advantages of some of the built-in features on the device, like the built-in CAB IR loader, and you've got a stereo send return loop. Now I'm going to demonstrate this in mono, but I want to get a feeling for what it was like to use this with the built-in CAB IR loader and some of the onboard IRs that come shipped with the device, and this IK Multimedia X-Bass reverb, which is running through the effects loop, and I've got a couple of different tones to share with you, so let's check that out. So that sounds really great. Now imagine with the extended range of features on the EVO, there's a lot of different uses. Now, of course, in a live situation, having your IRs on board here, the attenuator if you need to step it down, this pad feature here if you have a really, really loud amplifier and you need to sort of lower the input, you can use the pad here. But think if you've got a vintage style amplifier, as long as you have a speaker output, you can run that through the Amp Central EVO and modernize that vintage amplifier, giving you a stereo effects loop. You've got the noise gate and all the other features on here. So it's a really great versatile device, whether you're using it for a recording situation live, and especially upgrading an old amp to give you some more modern features. Well, there's my look at the RedSeven Amp Central EVO, and at its core is just a great sounding load box, and that's what's most important to me as I am in a recording situation here. All of the extra features on here I consider value add, and there's a lot of value here. If you like having a built-in CAB IR loader and all the other features that I talked about, well, it's all here, but at its core, it sounds really, really good. And that translation of that amp to a recording, for me, is the most important thing, and it's the reason why I knew that I wanted to have one of these in my studio. Now, if you're playing live or things like that, well, you've got all of those features here, like I said, with the CAB IR loader, and the fact that you got the send return loop here in stereo to add effects and things like that, plus the attenuator. It's just a very flexible device. Anyways, I'm going to put a link in the description if you want more information about this. If you have any questions for me, any thoughts or anything about this, well, that is what the comment section is for. And if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And while you're down there, well, let's continue the discussion about amplifiers. This guy that's been flashing beside me, well, I've introduced it, and it's sitting right over here if you want to check it out. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll, and I'll catch you in the next one.